But it's amazing when you like realize just how many people you know in it. Like it seems like a small community. Once you're in it, though, it feels like it's this huge like family that you're part of. But
Yeah.
really, people that are not inside that community don't see it as a very big one because they're like, I've never even heard of this sort of crazy behavior.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Runnah, your favorite local running community. I'm Juliana, and this week we are bringing another one of our lovely, wonderful ultramarathon runners, who I would say is definitely a local legend in the ultramarathoning scene, if I do say so myself, you know. But we have Maria Chevalier. Did I say that right, Maria?
You did.
Yes. Okay. I killed
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah, and Maria is a very prolific ultramarathon runner. She's run multiple 100-milers, and she's also like helped with our last guest right before this. She has paced Kyle Robideau for multiple training runs and just kind of been by his side at certain things, you know. But I'm very excited to end. Also, I almost forgot, Maria, you just ran the Mount Deco's sponsored Double Boston this year. And for the first time, the premiere, just the first time ever that they did that, which is very exciting. But welcome to the show, Maria.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to meet you and nice to be on here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you here. What's the first time you like? What was your first ultramarathon? Like, what was the thing that kind of got you hooked on? Or maybe you didn't have the most positive experience with your first ultramarathon. I don't know, but maybe your first ultra experience, I guess.
I had done quite a few marathons. Like I'd started off with trail running. I grew up in Colorado, I guess I should say it that way. So I kind of cut my teeth on trail running out in Colorado as a teenager. And I loved it just because you're in the woods and it's kind of you. And it's not like the hardcore road running, pacing and like freaking out about like your speed. And so it's kind of where I figured out, like, I've never been really great at other athletics, but I can run for forever. As long as I don't feel like there's like this crazy pace yeller or like there's someone chasing me, because I'm also pathologically afraid of being chased, which is maybe that's why I'm like a mid-packer. I feel like I'm not being chased. Right. I got really into like the marathon thing starting in the 90s. I did my very first one, and it was of course a road marathon. And then I slowly but surely, it was a horrible and wonderful experience all at the same time. And by the end of it, I was just like, this was terrible. When's the next one? Like I was that person. And then I did another one. I did two the following year. And then at the third marathon I ever did, I met some people that were in the 50 States Club. And so I was like, ooh, tell me more. This again was in the late 90s. So it was like, you know, not a whole lot of internet access for some of that stuff. So more word of mouth chatting. Started meeting these people, started seeing them at different marathons. And then I think you needed to collect like 10 states before you could apply to like the club that's like one of the official clubs that's out there. And then I met some other people that were also into ultra running. And I'm like, I've always wanted to run further than 26 miles. I always thought it was weird that you stop at 26.2 and like, I feel like I could keep going, you know? And I thought, is that wrong? Because maybe I'm not putting everything out there on the line, but honestly, it's just like endorphin for me at that point. So a friend of mine who was new to marathons, he had been actually a former lifelong smoker. I used to live in Minnesota also for a few years, and I met this really great guy, Dave. He used to make fun of me running all the time, like hardcore make fun of me. He's like, you know, they invented bicycles and cars for a reason. So shout out to Frosty, my friend. He one day called me and said, I quit smoking. And I'm like, that's amazing. What do you need from me? How can I help you? And he said, don't talk to me about that, but, you know, like support me, but don't like come down on me and mock me. And I'm like, okay. So then the next day he called me, he's just like, I want to be a runner. What do I need to do? So he took his old school, like 1980s wrestling shoes and went for a run. And of course, hurt really badly. And so I was like, first order of business is we're going shopping. Anyway, so Dave and I developed like this really great running buddy friendship. And within 6 months, Dave is running his very first marathon and crushing it. I mean, he ran like I think a 3:30 or sub 3:30 at Chicago. He did great. for being a lifelong smoker to going 6 months as a runner.
Yeah.
So Dave was definitely bit by the bug, and he had a big love affair with Chicago. He just loved the area. So he said, because we of course talked about all things ultra and running, he's like, let's do our first 50K. Let's go to Chicago and do it. And it was a road trip because we were just in Minnesota at the time. So it was easy peasy. Easy peasy. And so we go out there, and it was a 50K along the lakefront. It was an out and back 10 times or 3 times of a 10-mile out and back. It was terrible weather. It was like driving rain in the upper 30s, like sideways rain off of the lake. And we were just soaking wet, miserable, cold, and loving every minute of it. We finished that 50K and went out and celebrated. And of course, we were like so much, felt so much better after that than we did after any of the road marathons we had done. Like recovery is just somehow always more magically happy after an ultra.
Oh, agreed.
And pretty soon the next year we're like, let's sign up for a 50 miler. And then we did a beautiful trail ultra in upstate Michigan. That was, gorgeous. It was the North Country Trail Run. I highly recommend it to anybody.
Okay.
I'm also not a purist with the 50 state marathon thing. It can be an ultra marathon. It doesn't have to be purely a road marathon. So I was like, this is, great ways to visit the country, right?
Yeah.
So it was northern Michigan up in Manistee. It's a 2-loop, 25-mile loop. And you go through just about everything. It's undulating hills, fern forests, big tall pines. You get like the smell of like that dank earth. It's just wonderful. And they hand you a beer and a burger at the finish line. I'm not sure what's better than that. So, we're like, sweet. And then Frosty kind of focused more on some more road marathons. And I was like, now I needed just more distance. So then I started throwing in all sorts of stuff. And by then I had moved out to Rhode Island. And I was still meeting up with some of my like running buddies I had met through the 50 States clubs and some of my Minnesota pals. And we would travel around and do these different states. But the more I ran here in New England, the more I found people that were like-minded and wanting that more ultra distance stuff. I fell in with a local running club in like the southeastern Mass, North Attleboro kind of area. I live in Cumberland, the Wampanoag Road Runners, and it was amazing. It was being a transplant to New England is not very easy for a Midwesterner, for like a Colorado girl. So it took me about 5 years before I even heard about this running club, and I got involved in them. And within the first week, I was like, I found literally my family, and loved it. But they were almost exclusively road running. Very few of them were trails, and very even fewer were ultra folks. But the more you kind of know, the more you meet people. And so just gradually I got to know more and more people and get involved. And now I would say my races are split. Hard to call them races. My events that I do each year are probably split like 25-75 marathons to ultras. Like I do heavily ultras versus less than that now. I just really love it. So, that's kind of what got me to where I am now. And I just love the people and the families and the reunions because, like you've said earlier, it's a small world, but a big world when you're in it. And I just can't wait. I can't wait a whole nother year to go to an ultra to see another, to see that family, especially in New England. You see them at all the ultras. So for me, having at least a monthly reunion is very good for my soul. So.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that your friend kind of got you into that. And okay. Now, when it comes to running distances, what's the furthest distance that you've gone right now, Maria?
100-mile, and I'll probably cap it there. I am married to the most supportive spouse, but also the most skeptical non-running spouse out there. He is formerly a competitive mountain biker and was very aggressive with it back in the 90s. And he was, really, really great at it. So he totally understands what I get from it and how the vibe and the feeling, that excitement, the endorphins. But he doesn't super love the idea of that kind of distance and doesn't really think it's very healthy or safe, even though, I could refute it and I believe that there's science to refute it, but that's just his feeling. So one of our sort of compromises and agreements is that 100 miles is the cap, the max. You know what I mean? So I probably will never go any further than that, though I'm so intrigued by these big multi-day events. And I would love to go like crew and pace at maybe something like that, where I'm not running more than 100 miles, but I'm still involved actively in like the week-long adventure, or the 4-day adventure, or whatever.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if I ever get to run Cocodona, you could totally be on my crew.
Rock on. Deal.
So, this is one of Juliana's like big, I put it in the purview. Like I almost signed up for the lottery this year. I was like, don't do that, Juliana. That's stupid.
Yeah. Well, the lottery was insane for next year anyway. After like so much press this year, Cocodona's lottery just exploded.
Well, and I looked at the price to be in the lottery. It's like almost $2,000. And I was like, yeah, like there's one difference between signing up for a $25 Tark race and like, there's a big difference between that and a $2,000 Cocodona lottery spot.
Yeah, those big adventures, I get why the price tag is where they're at, but they're also a little outside of my pay grade for that too. And so I feel like 100-milers are reasonably priced in my purview. And then, 50-milers, 100Ks, like things like that, like I can bite those off and handle as many as I want to in a year that way too. And recovery is decent from those things. And you can kind of just keep like a cyclical training pattern for that. But that big stuff, that's a way different animal. Like, I would like to just see that from the insider perspective, but on that first ripple out from it, like I'm here to support you, but I'm not sure I want to actually be in your shoes.
See, I would like to do that too, but I know that if I go support someone, there's no way I'm not going to want to do it because like, I just know my personality type and like it's just very much so that me seeing other people, like even just suffering, I'd be like, yep, nope, I'm going to do that,
Man. I think my husband's afraid that I would be the same way. Like if I even get close to it, that he'd be like, "Oh, you're going to want to do this." But no,
maybe
I think
someday.
right now, 100 miles right now is my max, and I'm actually okay with that. Like there's nothing inside of me at the end of 100-miler that feels like I want to go further. I need to go further. I do think there's some personality types that are like there is no limit to what their adrenaline wants or needs, and I respect that hugely. For me, I think that I get what I'm after in the event and in the training buildup. Like it's digestible for me. Like it's tangible for me, and I can manage that without too much sacrifice or loss or, and that's to each their own. Like no judgment on the people that are like, nope, 50 miles is my max, or nope, 26 is my max, or the 5-milers, or that's my max. Good for you. If that's your max, that's your max. And you love your kingdom, I'll love mine. You know what I mean? But huge respect for the people that like are diehards and are like, let's see what it feels like to run 300 miles.
Oh my God. I know. I watch Andy Glaze. I'm sure you follow Andy Glaze. Like
Andy Glaze. Yeah.
Like watching him do like the Monster 350 or whatever the heck, Arizona Monster 300, whatever it was. I was like, I don't know. Because I mean, that's a lot less supported. It's a lot less like there's not really a crew there. He did that like fully on his own. Like
that's true.
He's doing it in the most like backcountry backpacking way he possibly can. And like, I'm just like, okay.
I think for people, and I'm not going to say I can't stereotype everybody. I don't like to stereotype, but I think for the runner that has the mindset that's similar to like Andy Glaze's, and I've met a handful of them over the tenure of all the races I've done.
Yeah.
There is a very specific mindset that's just like the greater the suffering, the greater the challenge, the greater the prospect that I have to do this entirely on my own, the more the enticement for them. And I can see it and respect it. It's not my mindset, and it's not what like feeds me or drives me.
No.
But I love seeing that. Like it's like I'm not a big fan of like, I would never want to be like this crazy CIA spy, but I love watching TV shows about that. So it's the same thing. Like I love watching what a 300-miler crazy sufferfest king can do. But that's not my jam.
Yeah. I don't want that version of ultramarathon running for myself personally either. So totally fine. So much respect out to him and everyone else who's doing those things. And
same with like the Barclays people. You know what I mean? The people that tackle Barclays, like
Barclays like my worst nightmare because I'm horrendous at orienteering and not because that's like almost just bushwhacking at that point.
Oh yeah. All of that just seems, I mean, it's so intriguing and cool to watch and follow and hear about. But it's funny, like some of my non-running friends or friends of friends or whatever, when they find out about like ultra running or things like that, that's almost one of the first questions they ask, like, oh my God, are you going to do Barclays? And I'm like, that's not even like, that's not something
attainable, really, even like that's one of those things where it's like there's a very specific group of probably like 20 humans on the entire planet who want to do this run and like have the ability to do this run. And
and like trying to explain what it takes to do, let's just say like a 50 miler, like the North Country Trail Run, or a TARC 50 miler. What it takes to do that seems really, really crazy to someone who's like, oh, I've run a 5K before, or oh, I used to run in high school, or for wrestling or something like that.
Yeah, never mind.
Then to take that and extrapolate it out to something like, then you take that and you make it so much more extreme. There is such a microcosm of people that's A, what they can do, B, what they want to do, and C, that they're able to get into. And I love that it's like a secret handshake, secret squirrel society. Like that keeps it cool in my mind too. I hope that doesn't get infiltrated or busted down. Like I hope that sort of thing stays like, it's what makes it magic, I think.
Yeah. I'll be interested. So I'm going to the US Trail Running Convention on a scholarship, actually, in this group of people that's like a new trail race directors scholarship group. And one of the people who's presenting is Lazarus Lake. And so I'm going to be there for at least, I don't know if we're going to get to meet him. I'm assuming this convention is not humongous. Like I'm assuming it's like the trail scene, like big enough, but not like big and so big that you can't interact with the people who are presenting,
I hope so.
So that'll be very interesting to meet this very eclectic, odd gentleman, possibly in person.
I'd love to have a beer with that guy, even not to talk about running, just to talk about life. He has lived like 9 lives in one. I just think he's doing it right. You know what I mean? No, he's doing it his way.
Yeah, I just want to like sit down next to him and just like let him go off and just be like, yeah, okay, great. And just hear like what wild things come out of this man's mouth, because I can only imagine it's truly only wild things. So,
but to him, it's probably just like his average day, right?
Yeah. He's like
Andy Glaze.
Just an average
day,
just casual, just very casual, But yeah, no, I definitely think it. I feel like that's kind of like the whole like, are you running Boston thing of like the marathon running world, where it's like, okay, not everyone has to run Boston, not everyone is going to run Boston. Like just because you haven't run Barkley, you haven't run like the Boston Marathon doesn't mean you're not a marathon or an ultramarathon runner, essentially. So, but it is one of those.
It's funny though, the further out from like the inner circle, the further out people are from that circle of doing what you do, the crazier the questions, or the more generalized the questions. Like, you run marathons, have you done Boston? You run ultras, what about Barclays? Like those kind of questions. And I think that's just human nature for them to ask those questions, because they're trying to connect with the little bit that they might have, like as far as like interest or knowledge of it. And I always kind of use that as like an open door to be like, let me explain like kind of what the reality is, but without try really hard to not come off in like a condescending or like judgy way, to be like, oh, it's usually self-deprecating. I'm just like, oh my God, I could never do something like that. Or, right. Or I never thought I could get to Boston, and then I did. And now, it's like this thing that I really love. And it's amazing. It's amazing when people do what they want to do without fear of being judged for it. Is really, I think, when you can find your joy in something. And that's really, I think, what we all strive for eventually in life, right?
Yeah, well, I think that's like exactly what ultramarathon running is it's just like refusing to care what other people think, like in a positive way, though, just being like, no, this is what I want to do. And I have confidence in myself to do it, because there is like, I would say, a lot of noise in like the road marathon scene, specifically of like, oh, like 26.2 miles is kind of like the ultimate distance to kind of go towards. And if you go past that, like, what are you doing? That's crazy. And like, it is a little bit crazy, but what are you going to do about it? This just positive crazy and this negative crazy. I feel like it's a positive crazy. So it is that kind of like counterpoint of that judgmental person or like mindset potentially, that I feel like just like, I'm not targeting any specific person. It just kind of exists in the ether out there, of like, to run past 26.2 miles is like not okay for your body. Your body's going to break down. It's kind of like the whole training for a marathon, oh, you shouldn't run past 20 miles, which I am like not the biggest fan of, because that 6.2 miles is a spicy 6.2 miles. And the people, generally speaking, the people that I've seen kind of like tank the most in that 6.2 miles are the ones who stopped at 20-mile runs. And my advice is usually like, at least go walk another 3 miles afterwards, like feel what it's like to like get to that point of exhaustion and like have to keep going,
So I'm a little torn on it. If you are a brand new marathoner, you've never experienced it, then I'm like cap at 20, because two things could happen. One, you could realize like, oh my God, I don't even know about hurt yourself, because I think you're training like your level of ability, unless you're like some crazy kid that just doesn't listen to your body. I think your level of ability is going to stop you from doing anything that's going to hurt you in that next 6.2 of training. But if you run past 20 miles in training, before your very first time of ever running 26.2, a couple of things happen. I think one, you miss out on this like magical thing of what that's really going to feel like when you do it for the first time. And therefore, when you cross that finish line, kind of going like, look what I did. And oh my God, I could do that. And then the second thing is you might almost scare yourself to a point to be like, if I felt that crappy when I hit the wall, because a lot of people hit the wall between 20 and 23, 24, then I feel like you lose a lot of confidence for that very first time. So if you're a first time marathoner, I like to tell anyone new to it, like 20 miles, I think is enough for you to understand like what your body's going to go through and prepare for, mentally, physically, all of it. Save a little surprise. It's like finding out the sex of your kid before you have your kid. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those few surprises left in life, and to each their own. But if you're an experienced marathoner, or you've at least done one, now you know what that's going to feel like. So now I'm like, maybe let's talk about doing like a 22 or a 23-mile training run. You know what I mean? Just so you can kind of train your body or see what that wall is going to feel like. And is it something that fueling might be able to help? Is it something that like gear or mental stuff is going to help you with, or, but I don't know, that's just my take on it.
I think that's a great take. And I think like, I'm not a running coach in any capacity. This is just like my personal experience. But like, I think I've actually never heard anyone make that point before of that. Like it's the first time you get to experience that kind of either like joy, pain cave, combination of the two, going into it. Like obviously when you finish your first like official marathon, it is still your first official marathon, no matter how long your training runs were. But yeah, it definitely, I guess like kind of like saving that experience for the day is something that I think people can definitely prioritize for sure. So
I'm kind of an opportunist when it comes to experiencing something that, is a surprise or new to you, because I do feel like the longer we're on this earth, the less things are like surprising to us. And so I feel like, you run the risk of them becoming rote or becoming routine or becoming like, I guess you appreciate them less, or this is my own purview to it.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'll give you like an example. My very first Boston, I had probably run 40 marathons before I got into Boston. It wasn't my first time running 26.2, but it was my first time towing the line at what has always been a bucket list for me since the day I first thought maybe I'll run a marathon. I always thought it was way out of reach, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And the morning of that marathon, I left my house super early because I was taking a charter bus with our group that was on this team. And I'm like, I wanted to have all my ducks in a row. So I spent like the days leading into it, preparing with my lists of what to bring and what to have and what to pack. And the one thing I forgot that morning, because I left it on its charger, was my watch.
Oh no.
So I get about an hour away from where I could go home or anything. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't have my watch. And I had that like type A personality, OCD panic moment where I was like, what I can't run without a watch. You know what I mean? And I'm not super data driven, but I do like to have like a basic watch with my mileage and my pace. And I let myself have like, I talked myself down from this. And this was 18 years ago, 17 years ago. I talked myself down by saying like, you can have 5 minutes to panic and freak out and lose your mind. And I wasn't going to call anybody. I was just going to have my own little me bubble. And I was in my car driving and I'm like, shit, what do I do? And then I realized, A, there's nothing I can do about it. I can't like turn around. I don't have time. B, nothing's changing the fact that I'm getting to the start line and running the Boston Marathon today. And C, I have the choice to either freak out about it and put all of my energy into that and miss out on all this other stuff, or totally throw my energy into just being open to what the day is going to bring me. And it was my first marathon I've ever run without a watch or timekeeping. And you can't exactly go by the clocks that are on the course, because those are from the minute like the first gun goes off, right? That's like the cumulative time from the very first wave of like the elites. And it was so refreshing to not have something beeping, something I was looking at. I literally just took in the sights, the sounds, like the vibe. And I was like running with what felt good. And I'm like, you know how to pace yourself. You know what like a X minute per mile feels like. You know what the hills are going to feel like, blah, blah, blah. And then I kept reminding myself, you are never going to get your first Boston Marathon again. This is a one and done for you. You might never come back to Boston. And even if you do, if you're that lucky, you will never know. Like it's the first time. It's always like that surprise is going to be just this one time. So I kind of opened my mind and my heart to that. And it made me really, really appreciative of everything from since that time. Just kind of being like, well, this is what I'm given today. So let's see what like the new thing is for me this time, you know? And it's really helped change like my mental attitude towards stuff, which is why I would say to any first time marathoner, let it be your first time feeling all those feels. You know what I mean? Like let that be like, they get so excited when they're like, oh, 16 miles is the furthest I've ever run. Like let that 26.2 be the furthest you've ever run. Forever, you know?
I think
that's my long-winded way of saying it.
No, that's a great thing to point out. And I mean, I feel like for me, like it definitely, I would say like the first time I like really felt just like there and present. It was like my first 50K like last year when I did that with Ben, and like Ben was pacing me for the last 3 laps and he was like, oh, how are you feeling, Julianne? I was like, present, happy and present. And I really meant it too. Like I was like, I'm here, like I'm physically and mentally here. And like, I just like, I have so many like vivid memories from that day, because I was just like present the entire time and just like kind of even, but like my races since then, I've definitely like retained that. And like, even with Flat Rock recently, like I remember like most of the race, whereas like a lot of the road marathons I ran previous to that, like I don't really remember most of those. Like there's some little standout bits and pieces. Like I remember pieces, you know, and like certain ones, like my first marathon that I ran, like I remember huge chunks of that. Like that was fantastic for the most part. Like Mike Falcone and I had a great time running it together, but and a lot of great memories from that. And the Chowder Challenge too, which that was the year where it hailed on us on the way back into Falmouth. That was interesting. 40-mile-an-hour winds and hail.
There can be some fun weather days down in Falmouth.
Usually for the marathon weekend, we get one good weather day and one bad weather day. And it's pretty consistent with that. And it's just a toss up. Is it going to be the half or the full marathon day? Last year, the full was like a typhoon. So whatever. I'm out there the whole time announcing the race anyway. So like the runners, I always like to check in with them because they'll start like largely our runners won't really complain that much because we keep them very well informed. I mean, you know, Kathy, she's like on top of things, but like, I always like to remind them too. I was like, all the volunteers are out there longer than you are. Like, thank them and like, have a nice time. And like, I'm not going to hear any complaints, my friends, because our volunteers are doing this for free and for a sweatshirt, and they're out there longer than you are.
And even, it's funny, even at the races where you don't get any swag for volunteering, there's still the importance of thanking them for being there, because they're not getting anything for it other than the joy of helping you.
Oh yeah. Anytime I run a race. Anytime I run a race, I make sure like I scream at the volunteers. I'm like, thank you. Like no matter who it is, what they're doing, I make sure I'm like profusely thanking them, because like, you're right. Especially with trail races, they're showing up, like they're probably getting free food from the aid station. You know, that's probably, but they probably also brought the food. So it's kind of like they get to eat their own lunch essentially.
I try to tell any of my non-ultra friends that are considering dabbling in ultras or they're ultra curious. I always tell them biggest suggestion up front is volunteer at one first. for a couple of reasons. I think that everybody should volunteer to get like that other side of the table feeling so that you know when you're there. And also, I mean, it's what makes this go around. Like you have to give what you're going to take kind of thing. But secondly, I feel like that just jams up your energy even more that you're like, yes, I really do want by this. You see what the runners look like. You see sort of like their dark moments, their light moments. You see that it's not the same as like a road race or the same as like even a marathon. The pace is taken. I say the pace, not just your speed, but like the pace of like how you're managing the whole event is taken way down and way more mellow than like, you know, you're racing through an aid station at a marathon or you're only ingesting like liquids and gels, you know, versus, you know, I feel like people that are going to do their first ultra, go volunteer at one first. And there's so many opportunities to do that here in New England. I mean, the TARC series, you know, like the Notchview group, like all the like Western Mass, there's a ton of opportunity. The Beast Coast series, so many opportunities to volunteer and then kind of get your feet wet and try one. And I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah, I always recommend people volunteer for whatever distance race you're interested in, volunteer at it. And if you can, volunteer at either the aid stations that's the start/finish or like for road races, I recommend people volunteer as like handing out medals or like whatever the finish line is, because there's absolutely no way you can go to a marathon finish line and volunteer handing out medals and not want to run that race the next year. Come at me. Like there's no way.
Very true. Very true.
I'll harass people into volunteering at the finish line for the Cape Cod Marathon. And I'll be like, okay. And then the next year they're like, Julianne, I'm going to run it. I'm like, great. That was the goal, you know?
Nice. You're like, notch another one.
Nefarious motives, you know, that's me constantly harassing people to run the Cape Cod Marathon and now the Cape Cod Trail Race too. So,
you know, what's neat about like, I think sort of the trajectory of life and being an aging runner myself. You know, I know several friends who have gone through like the new to marathoning, now really prolific at it. Now kind of twilight years. I hate to say twilight years, like they're ending, but they're like tapering. They're not doing as many events per year, or they're maybe not qualifying as fast as they were before, or maybe they're ending streaks because they have to be more selective about which events they can do. They can't just sign up for everything. And I really love to see that volunteer focus can be as a newbie, but also as a tapering runner in life, because I feel like I see a lot of that in my running peers that are older than me. They're like, okay, well, I can't be there. The next best thing as a runner is to be there as a volunteer. You know, I have a good friend. She's still a very strong runner, but she's been through some injuries and some recovery and some surgery and all that. And we're talking like in her prime was like a 3:17 marathoner, like very fast, very speedy, very strong. Had a huge long streak with qualifying for Boston. She's doing the 50 states with me, so we've run a lot of races and traveled to a lot of places together. So we know each other really well as runners, but the last few years she has not run Boston, and the first year was pretty tough that you don't get in and you don't do it. And I think, you know, everyone has to struggle with when that kind of a streak ends. But the last I think she took 1 year where she wasn't around it or involved in it all. And then after that, every year she's been a volunteer giving out finisher medals.
Oh, wow.
And she's always who I go to. And she tells all of her friends, because she knows so many people in the New England community as runners. She tells all of us, like, come to this one spot. I'll be there. And I almost think that her joy parallels that of a finisher crossing the finish line. She is crying every time I see her. She has all these great stories and pictures of everybody. She takes selfies with her and like her friends that she gets to put a medal around her neck. It's like this really cool way of sort of like continuing on. I don't want to even say like living vicariously. It's just continuing on what your running lifespan is going to be. You know what I mean? Like there's things you get to do, and then there's things that you choose to do. And I love that she chooses to do that to get like her marathon joy. So shout out to Lauren. She's like my favorite person to see at the finish line in Boston.
Well, I think for me, it's like an exchange of energy. That's what it is. Like you're not necessarily getting the same exact energy because you're not the one racing, but you are giving the runners energy and they're giving energy back to you. And it's so like invigorating and addicting. And like, I mean, there's a reason that the Cape Cod Marathon weekend is my favorite weekend out of the entire year, because I'm on the mic announcing people's finishes for like collectively probably around like, like 9 plus like 15 hours maybe for the whole weekend, maybe.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of time. Yeah.
But like I like people like Juliana, like, are you drinking? No, I do not drink coffee. I am just like high on people's energy. I am just like living my best life. Like, honestly, most years the Cape Cod Marathon is better. Like, being there for other people's finishes is a bigger high for me than it is me finishing my own races.
Yeah, it is. It's a fun weekend. I've been there for a few of them. We traditionally, my husband and I go camping on Columbus Day weekend. So since it's been on that weekend, it's been a little harder for me to get around it. But I did it few years ago now, the last time I did it. And I remember Kathy gave me my medal at the finish line. And then Kathy and Bob were both there, and we did a little cheers at the finish line together with a little fun. So shout out to them. But they both bring such fun and great energy to anything that they're a part of, whether it's even just a training run or like a gathering of beers afterwards. They're a blast to be around. So I can see that, like, the whole energy around Cape Cod Marathon has gotten like much more exuberant since Kathy's been involved. You know what I mean? Which is really cool. And I love to see that's carrying on with other people around it too. But I'm a very, like, I would say, exuberant person as well too. Like, I am, especially on that weekend specifically, like, uncontainable. Like, you cannot contain the Juliana energy. The people of the Cape Cod Marathon have dubbed me instead of the MC, I'm the MV, the master of vibes for the weekend. Nice. I like it.
So, but we have a nice time. But like you said, like, volunteering, whether it's announcing a race or whether it's at an aid station or whether it is just like setting up the course, whatever it is, like, you get so much good energy out of that even if you are someone who like doesn't need to taper down in the races that they are running, it still brings so much into your life to volunteer on top of that, if you can.
Totally agree.
So
it's funny. I just had a conversation with somebody on a professional level about what volunteerism means and what, like, volunteerism, the definition of it, but also like the shoulds and shouldn'ts of it, and like, mandatory volunteerism and like, voluntary volunteerism and being voluntold about things. And I made the comment about how I volunteer a lot for like races and runs and stuff like that. And while that's not necessarily like all charity based, you know what I mean? Like, not every run is benefiting something. I feel like everything I volunteer for that's running related benefits like my fellow humans and people just being in better headspace. Again, I'm a huge advocate for like mental health awareness and mental health like advocacy. And so we were talking about that because we're doing like this volunteer thing. And I'm like, I'm always so like, I don't want to say troubled. I just don't understand the people that are just like, what do I get for it when I sign up to volunteer? Like, do I get an entry into something? Do I get, so like this? And I'm just like, I mean, I think that's just true, like, altruistic, like, mentality. Why are you volunteering? So I'm trying to change that in the spaces and the people that I'm around to be like, I'm not doing this to get something. I'm doing it because it feels great. And I love knowing that the other people that I'm doing it for get something out of it, so.
Oh yeah. I mean, volunteering for me is a solely, like, in the long run, like, narcissistic and selfish behavior, because I get like so much out of helping other people.
Absolutely.
I'm here to steal your good energy, my friends. Like, it is like, me volunteering means me stealing your good energy. So like, give it to me.
Yep. I think there's like some Mother Teresa quote about like doing something that's charitable. The reasons for doing it is something to do with like, if you're giving, it's different than if you're giving with love. There's a difference in volunteering versus volunteering with love behind it. You know what I mean? Where it doesn't matter. Like I for instance, if I volunteer to do something for somebody, even if I disagree with why they're doing it or why they need it done, if I'm doing it to help them, regardless of my opinion of it, then I feel like I'm volunteering out of love.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If I'm just volunteering, but I'm putting my own restrictive judgments on it, like, I don't think you should do that, then I feel like that mixes it up. But I do agree with you. There is definitely a selfish piece of it. But in the most positive, selfish way, right? Like it's such a healthy thing to be selfish about. Like, gosh, that sucks that you want to feel good about yourself by helping others.
Helping other people. Yeah, I know. It is.
Right.
It's just such a wonderful thing too. And like, I'm just such an energy based person on the whole as well too, that like that exchange of energy, it's just like, I one of the things I say all the time is like calls to like, which just means like whatever energy you're putting out is the same energy you're going to get back from the world. And if like you can give someone's like just like a little bit of positive energy, one thing that I love to do, especially during the summer, because there's just more people out running during the summer, I love to give a high five when I'm out running. Any random run, doesn't matter like what day it is. Like I high fived a couple of people this morning. Like we have a nice fun time. I give them a big smile. We give them a high five. But like that person, like when they see me high five them, like this guy who ran past me the other day and I high fived him, his face just like lit up. And I was like, that's great. That's exactly what I'm looking for. And then that carried me for the next smile. And I high five someone else. And that carries me for the next smile. Like I'm giving.
Have you ever been denied a high five?
Well, usually people just don't like, they're so in their head that they don't see it. My advice and like my strategy is make eye contact like at least 50 feet out, put the hand out at least like 30 feet out so they have time to like get out of their head, register, and then give you the high five. Which actually did happen. So someone missed me the other day and then we ended up passing each other again. And I was ready to not high five them because they didn't pass me, but they stuck their hand out like last minute and they were like, yeah, I was like, well, yeah, okay. So that person saw it, but they just took them too long to register, but they caught me on the way back and we ended up high fiving on the way back. And I was like, that's right. That's exactly the energy I'm looking for, you know?
It's exactly. So I am a high fiver too. I'm a high fiver and I'm like a shouter outer for people.
I always be like
I cross the road to high five people. I yell like over traffic at people. I'm like a positive heckler.
So
and I'm like, when I do like bike path runs or crowded runs, I have like little goals in my head for how many people can I get? And I keep ratios. I'm like, how many hellos to miles, like howdies to miles, if they verbally acknowledge me or if they just like head nod me or something like that, if they're like a walker versus a runner, how many kids versus adults. I'm a huge fan of that. Like I also count like how many, you know, like dogs that I see on a run. And then if I don't get it, if I notice it's like one of those days where I'm just seemingly like getting a low return of vibe, a lot of times I'll holler out like a really unique sort of heckle. Instead of saying like, great job and like, nice work, I'll say something like, oh my God, I love the color of your shoes. You know what I mean? So they're just kind of like taken aback by that. It's like the difference in saying to someone, how you doing today? And asking them just like, you know, well, how does your finger feel today? Like getting very specific about it. So that also changes my mind when I'm running. I get less bored. I feel more engaged in like the senses around me. And if I'm doing like a long run and there's not a lot of people around, then I'm known to like talk to the animals and wildlife that I see, or I count like the rabbits or squirrels.
Yesterday when I went running in the torrential downpour, I had a really funny moment where I got, I was coming off the bike path and a giant truck went by and I got sidewalled by the biggest wave I've ever gotten sidewalled by. It was like at least 10 feet tall. And I just laughed my ass off because like this thing just like came up over me and like, and I was like, that's hilarious.
That's awesome.
But there's a turtle that lives on the bike path and I didn't see the turtle. Usually the turtle's out when it's raining. So like my whole wave up and down the part where I know that it lives, I was like, where's the turtle? Where's the turtle? And like the turtle didn't show up. It didn't hear me, you know, but like I was calling out to the turtle. And anytime I see the turtles out here, I go, I like turtles. Because there's that kid like a while back, like 10 years ago, he's like, I like turtles.
I like turtles.
How cute.
But
whatever gets us through our runs.
Yeah. I mean, I'm also a big proponent of like thanking nature too. Like anytime I do a trail run, I'm like, thank you leaves. Thank you. Like, and I thank them for like the ambiance and the smells and all these things and like the birds chirping, things like that. Like I've been known to shout like random shout outs to like any part of nature, you know, just
I'm a very grateful runner also in the sense I feel like I'm living your life with like a gratitude focus. Even on my worst runs, there's always something to be grateful for. And, you know, everyone has their own version of faith and what that means and what they have faith in and what they have belief in, and whether you're religious or not, and what your version of meditation or prayer might be. I am religious and I do pray. Honestly, I pray quite a bit when I run. I find those to be like contemplative times, but also like joyful, grateful times. And I feel like, having been raised religiously and having kind of defined my own version of what I believe in, I've learned that I used to be someone who would pray and ask for help when something wasn't right. And I've converted myself more into being someone who prays and asks or just speaks gratitude for why so many things are going right, and calling out, like, prayer and help and guidance for people that maybe are not me. You know what I mean? Like there's other people, like maybe if I can help focus some energy towards that. And I find that has helped a ton. It changes like your mindset. It changes like your positivity volume, if you will. So I do a lot of like meditative prayer when I'm running, and it's like, that they always call it the church of the long run. And I do that quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm not like, I grew up Christian Catholic. I don't practice that at all, but I am like a very like kind of like energy based spiritual-ish person. I've been moving more into like doing some kind of like witchy things. I'm making my own tea or setting intentions, things like that. Nothing like crazy bananas yet, but we could be getting into things. But like I'm in the same mindset too. And it kind of comes back to, again, that like calls to like thing, whatever energy that you're going to put out and like facilitate for yourself internally, whether that's through prayer or just meditation, or just like telling yourself like everything's going to be okay, or like thanking the trees for like bringing the ambiance of like nice fall leaves today, like anytime like the leaves are not, I was like, thank you trees for that lovely ambiance. I appreciate it. It's a nice time. Like we just thank them or whatever. And like that whole thing can really just like over time, especially if you're consistently doing that I feel like is one of the keys, I personally think, to like finding happiness within yourself and also like in the world in general. Because if you can put out a positive energy, you can generally be like, I feel like the world in general, especially like the Catholic religion that I grew up with, for sure, like is that religion that you're talking about where you only ask for help when it's like a crisis or like a bad thing is happening, and you only really pray when like, oh, you want something to like happen because there's like something terrible happening in your life, say something like that, where like if you make it a practice to also pray or be thankful or just state out loud your gratitude for something that's positive happening, and you make that a habit, that's something that's really going to change your entire outlook on life, for sure.
And that's the key word, practice and habit. I mean, you could apply this to, and we're talking about faith and we're talking about like meditative and we're talking about gratitude, but you can throw this to anything. Like you have to practice your craft as a runner to get to a point where you can run the distance you want to. You have to practice, I went to school for music, you had to practice your music in order to get to a point where you could perform not only by yourself, but with others that count on you. You have to practice being a good friend if you want your friends to be a good friend back to you. You have to practice being a good partner if you want your partner to be a good partner. You know what I mean? Like it's all about, if you practice all the good that you want to also get back, you manifest it and it just ripples out from there. But I don't know. I think running's a huge catalyst and conveyance for that too, which is why I think that people that run for their lives or run long term, I think they've tapped into that. They've figured out that magical trick. You know what I mean? And I think that that's just one of the many benefits, one of the many health benefits, one of the many like soul benefits that you get out of it. Which is why it's always funny when I meet people that are new to me and don't know about the kind of running that I do. They're like, oh, I can't run. I can't run a mile, or I hate it or whatever. I'm just like, if you ran a mile with me, I guarantee you'd feel differently about that mile and about running.
Yeah.
And you might still decide that running's not your thing, but I don't think you would say, I hate running. I think you would understand why some people love running and have a different respect for it. But you have to be around people that can kind of open your mind to that.
Yeah. And not having that attitude of like, I can't, or I won't, or things like that. Because I mean, the biggest thing for me, like recently, has been the mantra, what if it works out? Like, I've just been kind to keep that in the back of my brain, because Juliana's anxious brain, like I have like baseline anxiety in my brain. Like, it's just a chronic thing that I've always dealt with and will continue to deal with the rest of my life. But my little anxiety brain likes to be like, well, what if this happens? What if this happens? And just like counteracting that with like, well, what if it works out? What if it works out? And just like kind of like smoothing over that anxiety, like in my brain, and just being like, yeah, like, what if it works out? And like, genuinely, I think that's helped me like not have as many injuries. Cause like, I definitely have been like tensing up my body, not realizing it in the past, and like not breathing properly in the past, just because like mentally I'm having anxiety over something that hasn't happened, probably won't happen. And like, it's just one of those things where, yeah, like if you can just kind of have a positive attitude about something, and it doesn't have to be like everything's going to be perfect and rainbows and butterflies and unicorns, but just like realistically being like, I can finish this, or I can do this. And I mean, I personally think if you're going to start an ultramarathon, you have to be at least a little bit delusionally positive that you're going to finish that thing, because there's no way anyone shows up to the start of like a 200 miler or whatever and being like, yep, I got this in the bag, and knowing that everything is going to go perfect. There's no way.
Yeah. I think that's part of the allure for me, is that I don't know what race day is going to bring. You know what I mean? I don't know. Again, you can have the most perfect setup for something, show up to the start line and have everything in the place it's supposed to be. And anything could happen at mile 20 or 60 or again at 80, or, you know what I mean? And it's all about like digging into your physical and practical bags of tricks, but also your mental bags of tricks. You know what I mean? And I think that the more you do it, the better you, again, with practice, the more you do it, the better you get at it. And I've said this my entire lifetime as a runner. The day I stop learning from any of this is the day I stop doing these events. There is not a single race, whether it's a 5K or a 100 miler, that I've done that I haven't learned or gleaned something from. And I feel like that's so important for me. That's what I need from it to keep going with it. Although I do worry about what the body count is going to look like on the day that something about my body tells me I can never run again. I do really worry. You heard it here first.
Yeah, same. So I think there's a lot of us who are like in that category. Yeah. We're just like, yeah, I might be a lethal weapon when I figure out I can't run any further. So, you know.
You know what's interesting too? I think again, you've tapped on this and talked about this in your previous podcasts and with other runners, and even with me, you know, what chronic illness can do for that, and how that can be like an albatross sometimes, but also a huge motivator sometimes. And I think that, you know, sometimes people wear those things very visibly on their sleeves. You can see someone, like I'll use Kyle as an example, right? He's wearing a blind bib in an event. He's got guides to help him because he's visually impaired. He doesn't, you know, like if you run at all with this guy, like he's the most fun. He's super kind. He's super like genuine. He just wants to have a great time out there. He puts so much positivity out on his runs too, even when he's having a bad day. But there are the runners, and there are the people out there that carry things inside and under their shirts and under their sleeves that you just don't know about. And I have done countless ultras. I don't really see this too many in marathons too much, but a lot of times in ultras, you just hook up with someone that's a random stranger to you, and they just start telling you and shedding like their life stories, because I think, you know, you've broken yourself down, your inhibitions are gone, you trust the environment you're in. A huge piece of it, I think, is that you're not making eye contact with the person, so you can just kind of put it out to the universe, whatever you need to say. And I love hearing what people are willing to talk about. I don't even remember like names to put with some of the stories, but I always remember the story and the trust that they had in sharing their story. And so much of those stories are things that they're carrying inside: scars, wounds, you know, current battles like addictions, you know, past breakups, like current breakups, you know, illnesses, debilitating things, whatever it is. And I think it's just such a beautiful thing that you can go out there and do all this hard work with your own body, but maybe in that same volunteerism mindset, be there to hear somebody else that's trying to work through something. And even if it doesn't solve their problem, maybe if it takes a little weight off their shoulders to have kind of put their stress out into the universe, and then you work through it together, right? You work through like your dark mile together, you work through whatever their tension is in the moment, and you're not fixing the problem, but you're at least acknowledging what's going on. And I think for me, like, I haven't had like illness my entire life. I've always had some sort of thing, I've had like some pretty big obstacles to kind of cross through at different stages in life. And I've, in those moments, not really realized what they are, what they're going to eventually mean to me. But in hindsight, I'm really grateful that they've kind of made me who I am now, because I feel like that is also fuel to be like, well, I've been through this and it doesn't compare to anybody else's this that they're going through. But what it does show me is that it's valid to acknowledge. It's valid to say, I can still do in spite of or because of. And it's valid to say, like, what's next? You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like it builds you up to a space where you can take on more things and you can be like, okay, what's life going to throw at me next? Because it's not done. That, you don't just go through one thing and then all of a sudden you've paid your karmic dues. I've also learned that at this age that, karma just has a way of keeps throwing stuff at you. And I feel like running is such a really great catharsis to kind of deal with it.
Oh yeah.
And then still be like, look what I can still do. I've told this story a lot this year because people have asked me like a lot of my running whys and why I do what I do and what has gotten me here. And I've said this story a lot that I once had, I still have this wonderful, amazing group of like medical professionals in my life, like my team, if you will. And one of them is like my primary guy, like my key surgeon. And he's kind of the guy that's seen a lot of this and he knows where I've come from. And one time early on, he was just like, I just got to ask you, why do you do this? And I say, well, my body tried to tell me that I can't. And this is my way of saying, fuck you, I can. This is my, like, and there's no reason physiologically why I can't find a way around to do this. And I just feel like it's a really good mindset to be able to get to a trail and there's like all these blown down trees. Doesn't mean that the trail's over for you. It just means you got to find your way around those trees, whether it's around, under, over, or through. You know what I mean? And I think the same thing can be applied to like other life things. Just running, you get to do it every day, or you get to do it hopefully every month or every year, or whatever your event schedule is.
Yeah. No, I totally agree too. I mean, just like my personal experience recently, like last week, I had my long run kind of tank a little bit, I think because of the heat. It just kind of like really decided that it was going to like not work properly for me. And I was like, okay, fine, whatever. But almost exactly 3 years ago now, I got my emergency colon resection. Emergency being not planned. And then I had the New York City Marathon in the purview of that. And the weekend that I was in the hospital was the weekend I was supposed to start my long runs. So that obviously didn't happen. But as I was like, I could feel like myself tanking and like I stopped myself before I like fully tanked, we tapped out early because I knew what was happening. I thought to myself, I was like, 3 years ago, Juliana would have killed to be on this run. Like I would have murdered someone to be out here running on these trails right now. 3 years ago. So like whatever we can kind of like take from this, that is like a positive thing and we can be grateful for, like, let's do that. Even though I knew that what was happening and I was getting like way more rapidly dehydrated than I really should have been. I think because the woods was making the humidity like 100%. It was quite humid in the woods, but
there's like no airflow.
Yeah, there was no airflow and it was just like, it was the day where it was like 95. And I think just being on the Cape, like it's a lot more humid down here in general. And I think the humidity just got like, I don't think I've ever sweated that much in my entire life. Like it was just a freak day, but thinking to myself, like 3 years ago, Juliana would have literally murdered someone to be out here, like sweating to death on these trails. So just like enjoy what you can out of it because like, you're not always going to be afforded this opportunity. And just having that knowledge, it's, I mean, again, like a lot of chronic illness people will probably identify with all those things. And I totally agree with all the things you said, like just being able to talk to people and be honest about things when you're running. I agree with like the lack of eye contact. For me, it's just me not having a filter on my mouth and just wanting to spew. It doesn't matter if we're looking at each other or not.
Exactly.
But it is like, it's nice to be able to facilitate, as someone who is like very honest and open myself, honest and open with their health and their health journey. So in the spirit of helping other people feel less taboo and less isolated, because I've been that place where I feel like I can't talk about it and I feel very isolated and I don't want other people to feel like that. Being able to facilitate that space is like really empowering, not only for that other person, but for me as well, too, getting to like show other people that like, hey, it's okay if you want to talk about what's going on in your body. Like it might not be like the most typical experience, and whatever you're going through might be like kind of odd and like is obviously very unique to you, but it's still extremely valid. And that doesn't mean you can't do big things.
Absolutely. I think you struck a good word. It's validating. For someone to be able to say whatever mountain it is they're climbing, whatever issue it is that they're holding, whatever they're carrying inside, if you feel you're in a safe enough spot to say it, you know what I mean? Or if you feel empowered by being able to encourage that kind of discussion, it's very validating. And it just makes people, I think, makes me feel, and I would hope it makes other people feel like, okay, like this is one, maybe not the worst thing in the world. Two, I'm not the only one dealing with something similar. Or three, it is very unique to me, and not everybody lives my life, but wow, it's eye-opening. It's like, for me, it's like that little perspective check. It's eye-opening to be, other people have things too. You know what I mean? And carrying those is just as valid, but also sharing those is really helpful and really important, and if you are the person sharing because you need to, because your cup overfloweth, that's one thing. But if you're the person that can hear it and receive it, it's also very cathartic, I think. It just validates everything.
Yeah. And I mean, like one of my big like components of me existing on this planet is like being able to validate and like in a non-judgmental way hear people. It's just one of the tentpoles of this podcast and just my existence in general, But yeah, it definitely is. It's nice to be able to show people that it's okay to be vulnerable, and by example, and also by like just listening to people, because I mean, I had this conversation with one of my best friends from grade school, who I've recently reconnected with recently, who's actually the reason that I started running. Shout out to Lydia. She's not really running as much right now, but she's the one who was like, Juliette, wouldn't it be crazy if we ran 1 mile every day after school? And I said, Lydia, that's insane. Let's do it.
Not like a terrible idea. I'm in.
Yeah, like sounds good. Let's do it. But like we were talking about like how hard it is to really feel seen and listened to by the majority of the people out there, just because there's a large population of the globe, generally speaking, who's just not the best listeners and can be like very judgmental. And like when you find that person that you feel not only listened to, but like validated by, that's a really unique and just like eye-opening, and I feel like just soul cleansing experience for the most part, in my experience personally.
And encouraging to continue being that way yourself, right?
Yeah. And hopefully it does inspire. If you do interact with someone who like makes you feel validated and like is by example showing you how to do that, hopefully you can then take the things that you've learned from observing this person and then facilitate that experience for the next person down the line. And then generally speaking, hopefully we can all become a little bit more positive and a little bit more open and accepting and validating of other humans' lived experiences and a little bit less judgmental. But it's a process, and you gotta practice what you preach to. So
agreed. Again, for me, it's a lot of that faith or spirituality or whatever it is you believe in. I mean, I think we're all, the goal of being on this planet and being in these vessels and these bodies is to be the best version of ourselves we can be. And I don't think that's just like defined by, monetary or physical success. I believe so much of that is meant to be like, if you close out your life, then you can look back on it saying, I did good for others, or I inspired others, or I was good to others. I was just a nice person. Like, I think that's what matters. And so whatever your way of getting there, and again, I think this is also why ultra runners sort of like zoom in. That's why I think why people connect the like with like thing. You know what I mean? Like it's that magnet sort of idea, which is a beautiful thing because then you just hope that emanates out. Which is why I'm always excited when there's new people that want to try this or new people that want to get involved. I'm like, yes, drink the Kool-Aid, come to the dark side.
Yes, I think it's great. But okay, well, let's round out our discussion, Maria. I thought we had a lot of really great points. I think people are going to definitely identify with this because we have a fair number of ultramarathon runners and just like New England-based humans who are listening to this. So that's fantastic. We love to see it. But let's round out with what shoe do you choose to use? And you can tell me your favorite shoe that you're either using or have used.
So last year, probably 2 years ago, I saw somebody for the first time running in a pair of Mountain Coasts. And I was just like, what are those? And then I learned a little bit about them. And then last year I pulled the trigger, I want to say last spring, maybe like late spring, early summer. And I was like, let me try these. And I was like, oh, these are delightful. And I started off with the R1s, just for like road miles, because that's predominantly what my training is. Like I try to get in trails as much as I can, but I don't do trails alone. So a lot of my training is solo. So it's going to be on the roads or treadmills. And I like the R1. And then I hopped into the H1 maybe a month later. And fell in love with those because I feel like those are just as nice for a road shoe as they are for the road to trail combo. And they perform really well on trails too. So right now, and then I would say, just like this year, starting in January, I was able to test and use the C1. And then I used that actually for the Boston Double. And it didn't feel like I had run 50 miles in them. I wanted to keep them on after that double marathon. I wanted to keep wearing them. They felt the next day I wanted to put them right back on my feet as recovery shoes. They are delicious for whether it's a 3-mile recovery walk or a 50-mile road run. I have not used them on the trails because I'm so in love with my H1s. So right now, I would say my favorite brand is Mountain Coast. Favorite version of Mountain Coast is the H1. Closely followed by the C1. I'll be using the H1 for Vermont 100 in a couple of weeks. I might bring the C1s to change into it, part of it, but I probably will just stick with the H1s because they've been great. I've run up to 56 miles in them before in one run, uninterrupted, and they feel fantastic. So that's currently my favorite. I also love that they have significant longevity, and for the amount of miles that ultra runners put on their bodies, and trading out shoes that are only good for 250 to 300 miles is just crazy. Pardon the language, but horse shit. I feel like when you're spending that kind of money on shoes, they should last longer.
Agreed. Totally.
And as an aging female runner, I think hip feelings and knee feelings, not just females, I know, but like, I feel like hips are kind of the thing. Now I'm over 50, so I feel like that's becoming a thing to pay attention to. I like cushion, but I don't like squish uncontrollable cushion. I'm a neutral runner, so I will say that I feel like the R1, H1, and C1s are all very neutral friendly.
I would agree.
So I can't say from like any sort of like stability or anything. I can't speak from that angle. They are great right out the box. I would say the only thing, the C1s, I needed like 15 miles in them to break them down before they felt delicious. But it's not 15 miles every run. It's just those first 15. Once those were in the bank, they were fine. Versus a lot of other shoes, I felt like I've had to kind of break them in with like a 5, 6, 10-mile run. The H1s, I took them on a 26-mile run first time I took them out, and they felt great. The R1s, I think I took them on like a 20-mile run, and they felt great. I love that they last. The company is just wonderful. I think they're super customer service friendly. I know they're relatively new, so they've still got some stuff they're doing. I think they're going to grow leaps and bounds. I love that they're ultra distance focused.
Same.
And they aren't trying to homogenize their running shoes to make the 5Kers all happy as well as the ultra. I love that they're laser focused on ultra distance. People that are out there for the long haul. I've met several people within the company that I think are just brilliant and wonderful and kind and very giving of themselves. They sponsored the Boston Double this year. It's not the first time people have run like the front to back Boston Double, but it's the first year that they've done something that's been like an organized team, if you will. And the entire journey through that, they were very focused on the runner and the runner's experience, and just so communicative, so responsive. I can't say enough good things about them. I just think that they've got the right recipe all around, 100%. And awesome. I'm really excited for their new M1s to come out. I can't wait for those to be available, because I'm totally buying into those to try them. Yeah. So that's my long-winded answer of what shoe I love.
Well, and anyone who's watched this channel before knows that I love the Mount to Coast shoes too. I haven't done my full review of the T1 yet, but I did a review of the R1 and love it. Love it. Like one of the few shoes I would actually pay full price for, and I don't pay full price for shoes. I always try and find it. I like to thrift shoes, and I also like refuse to pay full price. If I can find a discount code, we're finding a discount code. But like that's a shoe where I would like actually be willing to pay full price for. So
I agree. I'm also a big fan of like supporting a new business. You know what I mean? Like I feel like once they've been established, maybe the price point will come down, and maybe it won't. But honestly, for the money that you pay for the shoes, they're slightly more expensive than like your homogenous current, like Hoka, Brooks, Mizuno, Nike, all those selections.
Actually, they're about the same price, because
I guess they're probably about the same.
Like if you get the Bondi from Hoka, which is like let me look up the price of the C1. Hold on one second. The C1 would be like the Bondi equivalent. And
180.
The Bondi is like 175. So it's like pretty much the same price.
I honestly have to say, for the price point, the fact that you're getting at least twice, if not 3 times the distance and mileage out of a shoe, again, as a neutral runner, I can't speak from like someone who's beating it up, but I have yet to see someone review any Mountain to Coast shoe and not get like extravagantly long miles out of them. Even more so, I think, if you're a rotator, and I'm a big fan of rotating. I never run in the same pair of shoes 2 days in a row. I never, and I've done that my entire life for 2 reasons. One, I hated when I got in love with one kind of shoe and then they stopped making, or they made improvements or changes, and it wasn't really an improvement or change for me. And also, I think that my body has stayed healthier because I have to adapt every day to a different type of shoe. I'm not running in the exact same shoe. So I feel like when I'm putting in, 60 to 90 mile weeks, if I'm changing that all the time, my body mechanics have to be flexible and neutral. I have that ability, and I know some people don't have that need like a, specific supportive shoe. But I love that shoe can do that for you. And I just feel like, for what you get out of that shoe, it's definitely worth the money. I've never been so passionate about encouraging people to try this shoe. And that was even before I got to know the company real well. When I was running him last year, I was just like, this is the end all be all for me. Like I have run in everything, I do really love the brand.
Awesome. Well, yeah, same. Love it too. And thanks for sharing that, Maria. Hopefully other people will go check out Mount to Coast, which
again, I hope so. Yeah.
Go check out some other videos on this channel, my friends, because there's already a video out for that. So, and go check out all the other people who have really loved Mount to Coast, because there's a lot of people out there who have really loved it.
But, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Maria, thanks for being on the show today. I appreciate having you.
Thanks for having me. No, it was a great conversation. I can't wait to hear more of who you have on in future podcasts.
Oh, thank you. And if people want to find you, is there a good place to find you? You have some social medias you'd like people to find you at, or no?
I do.
Okay.
I'm on Facebook just under my name, Maria Chevalier. I'm new to Instagram just in the last few months. And so you'll find me at Runnah. Spelled the New England way, Runnah, which is,
right where the side.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
I always get backwards.
Also, I have Zoom. Yep. I have the Rhode Island license plates actually that say Runnah too. That's been my license plate for 18 years. Yeah. I'm a big fan of making fun of the New England accent, but also like capitalizing on it. So you can find me on Instagram at Runnah. And pretty much at any kind of TARC or Beast Coast event, I'm always there too. So I'm a big face-to-face girl. So anyone who sees me, please come over, say hi. I love to make new friends. So And hopefully, Julie and I see you at a run sometime soon. Our paths will cross at one of these.
Yeah, I hope so. It was funny because I just had Judy, who's in charge of the what the heck is the name of her race for the refuge. I had her on, and then like immediately she was volunteering at Flat Rock, and I said, "Oh, it's Judy.
How about that?" Yeah, again, small world.
Small world, it's a nice time.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, friends, if you'd like to find Maria, I'll put her social information down below in the description. And if you'd like to contact me about anything, you can find me at runnapod on Instagram or runnapod@gmail.com. Happy to direct any questions, queries, concerns over to Maria if you have them. And that will just end out the show. And Maria, thank you for being on. And we'll see everyone next time.
Thanks so much. It was great. Awesome. Take care.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Runnah. This podcast is edited, hosted, and produced by me, Juliana Coughlin. Brought to you in part by the Falmouth Running Club and the Falmouth Community TV station. If you'd like to connect with us, you can find us on Instagram and on TikTok at runnapod. And you can send us an email at runnapod@gmail.com. And our original theme music was brought to you by the one and the only wonderful Jeffrey Hutton. And keep up the great work. I'm proud of you.